I'm a homosexual, and I'm ready. Me on the first day of college. I think we should talk about the fact that Dianna Agron made the hopes and wishes of thousands of lesbians come true with this film. I'm lesbians. Hi guys, welcome to a video, and in today's video, I'm just going to be reviewing the film Bear. Oh yes, the 2015 masterpiece in which Dianna Agron plays a Sapphic character. Yes! Thank you, ancient gods. I'm now religiously gay. I'm aware this film came out years ago, but I have not watched it since it was first released, and so rewatching it recently was like a whole new experience. A whole new experience because I had forgotten just how sapphic this film was. I feel like I used to dislike this film, but actually it's a lot better than I remembered it. So, Bear is about a young woman who becomes romantically involved with a female drifter, who introduces her to a life of stripping, drugs, and metaphysical experiences that teach her what happens when real life catches up with dark fantasy. So this film is very intense and it clues the audience in visually from the get-go. We're introduced to the characters of Pepper and Sarah through their surroundings, which tells you everything you need to know about who they are. And there's an immediate contrast between the two as well. You have Pepper, who is introduced to us in a fast-paced, chaotic, and hedonistic environment, which you can see is taking its toll on her. And then we have Sarah, who is introduced to us in a very still, mundane environment in which she feels alienated and suffocated. In fact, Sarah struck me as very gay-coded from the very beginning, in the way that she was so obviously othered and deeply unhappy in this heteronormative, conventional environment. Bear is just very much a film which shows and not tells when it comes to its main characters. A fun thing I did notice on my rewatch of this film is the very obvious connections it has to Desert Hearts. The locations are an obvious one, but there's also the cowboy hat, the Desert Hearts drip, and the way that Pepper was slightly reminiscent of Kay, if Kay was a crackhead. Yeah, mixed with a little bit of Gia Karanji, and I have to wonder if her character was actually inspired by those two in any way. Paz de la Huerta is a fantastic actor. She has such an intense presence on screen and was exactly right for this role. It was really interesting seeing her work opposite Dianna Agron because I feel like both of them have such a mysterious energy, so to see them interact with each other was nothing short of fascinating. This film is worth watching for the casting alone. 100%. Bear also offers a lot of beautiful cinematography. You can tell just how much care was taken with this film aesthetically. Again, the mise-en-scene, the costumes all tell a story about who Sarah and Pepper are, and the visuals in this film are definitely one of its stronger aspects. There was also quite a bit of nudity, which I appreciated for lesbian educational purposes only. But the nudity in the film really is tasteful and it has a purpose, which is very much a product of the female gaze, which this film has. And as I said earlier, I was surprised at just how sapphic this film is. 90% of this film is just Sarah being mesmerized by other women. And I guess this role just spoke to Dianna Agron on a personal level. Okay. The way the sapphic elements in this film are portrayed is actually really interesting to deconstruct. On the one hand, the lesbianism in this film is very much intertwined with a darker hedonism. When Sarah is introduced to Pepper, she's also introduced to a world of drugs and stripping, and the film sets it up so that the lesbian elements could easily be correlated to ethically murky desires. There's also the symbolism of the snake upon Sarah's exposed body directly before she sleeps with Pepper, which has obvious connotations to sin, forbidden fruit, and indulging in something that you shouldn't. Through this deconstruction, you could argue that the lesbianism in Bear has negative connotations. But on the other hand, meeting Pepper is what gives Sarah the courage to leave the life she's feeling suffocated by. Pepper also introduces Sarah to the pleasure and connection which was missing between her and her boyfriend, and she encourages Sarah to take control of her life instead of simply letting life happen to her. So there's different ways in which you can perceive the sapphic elements in this film. I felt like for the most part, the relationship between Pepper and Sarah was taken seriously. And Bear is about much more than just indulging in forbidden desires or using lesbianism as a cautionary tale. Sarah and Pepper have a lot of deep connective moments in the film, and in fact I was pleasantly surprised that the relationship between the two of them was a lot more potent than I initially remembered it being. Not only did they have a lot of cute moments which really inject some life into the film, I loved when they were watching animal documentaries on the sofa. It was pure joy. But there's also a profound meaning in their connection to one another that goes way beyond surface level. The film shows us this rather than have Sarah or Pepper state it in dialogue. For example, there's a part in the film where one of the strippers says to Sarah, "At the end of the night, the most important interaction comes from your soul." When she says this, Sarah closes her eyes and the shot immediately switches straight to Pepper, indicating that Pepper is the one who she thinks of and feels in her soul. We're also shown the depth of their connection through their love scene. And honestly, the love scene in Bear is one of my favourite love scenes of all time. And not just for lesbian science. It's very explicit, but at the same time, it's respectful, tender, and artistic. The love scene purposely focuses on Sarah's pleasure. And when you contrast that against the earlier scene of Sarah with her boyfriend, the difference is stark. To add to this, the morning after when Sarah wakes up and takes in the view, you can feel her sense of freedom and peace from her coming together with Pepper. And it's a really defining moment which bathes their relationship in a beautiful light. However, my favourite moment in the film is probably when Sarah gives Pepper the money to pay off her debt. It's so emotionally raw and vulnerable. And it's the scene where I felt like both the characters and the actors were most connected throughout the entire film. I also felt like that scene gave both actors a chance to kind of showcase their acting abilities, particularly Sarah, because for so much of the film, she's very dialed down, very passive, and just inside her shell. So it was just nice to see a more overt expression of emotion coming from her in that scene. To me, the core of this film very much revolves around Sarah's journey with herself and regaining control of her life, as well as her relationship with Pepper. There's dialogue in this film which more or less reinforces that notion as well. You know, it's very much about a woman regaining control of her life and not just letting life happen to her. And I think for the most part, the film did a successful job of portraying that and getting that message across to the audience. You know, I think it's easy to look at the stripping and drugs and attribute a seediness or a number of cliches about desperate women to this film. But what makes it stand out from a lot of other works is it's portrayed through a female lens, which completely changes the perspective and messaging of the film. For example, within the strip club scenes, it's often the men who are being observed and the strippers making the observations. One of the strippers describes the club as a petri dish full of pervs, freaks, and saviors. We mostly experience the strip club through Sarah's perspective, and the focus is on her experience and the sense of freedom she gains, rather than an objectification of her body for male benefit. Interestingly, the only time Sarah feels a sense of shame is when that is projected onto her by the very people she feels suffocated by. In fact, their reaction to her stripping is the only time it has negative or shameful associations within the film. Other than that, it's mostly explored in a neutral and observational way. In a lot of ways, this film is very interesting and intelligent, and there's a number of ways you could deconstruct it through a lens of class, feminism, and queerness. However, from an entertainment perspective, there is room to criticize this film. For sure. I think having too much focus on the more mundane aspects of Sarah's life after that had already been established made the film a little bit stale and kept it anchored to one place. I didn't mind it personally because I appreciate what the film was trying to do, but I think it's fair to say that this film is very much one note, which can wear a little thin for some people. I think the structure of the narrative and the ending is what stopped this film reaching its full potential. Sarah finds freedom through Pepper, but we're left wondering what Pepper found through Sarah. I think it's fair to say their relationship was the spine of the film, and Pepper was such an integral part that the abandonment of her at the end made the ending unsatisfying. I don't have an issue with Sarah finding her own way in life and not having a happily ever after with Pepper. Sarah's journey with herself was a key theme in this film, alongside her relationship with Pepper. But I think the film would have been better had it at least ended with some kind of conversation between the two of them, which wrapped things up, so to speak. Given the importance of their relationship, which would have made the ending much more satisfying, it maybe would have also worked better if Pepper had been the one to pick Sarah up while she was hitchhiking. That way, the message of Sarah taking control of her life would have been received by the audience, and at the same time, it would have felt more complete for an ending to a film. But that's just my opinion. Overall, I like this film, and despite its flaws, I appreciate it for what it is. I think at the very least, it's a really interesting piece of work to deconstruct. Oh, and don't I love to deconstruct things? I do. I'm not gonna hate on a film which gave us Dianna Agron in a Sapphic role. Did not. Okay guys, if you've seen Bear, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments section below. If you want to support lesbian content and women's voices, come and join the Sapphic Underground Club. Just come and join it. It's pretty much just a monthly tip for the gay peasant that lives in the village. That was probably offensive, but I live to offend. Straight people, gay people, every kind of people. Okay, goodbye.